Once again we've made our way to Swona in Mungo's boat, the Lorita, and she's safely anchored in the haven. It's the year 2000 and the turn of the century, and the barge is still holding its shape, but we sense that this will not be for much longer. The croft o' Nordhus was last occupied by David Allen, who left the island in 1920. At the North Head, the original light could be seen along with the wooden structure which hailed the foghorn. At this time of the year there are many types of seabird on the coastal rock ledges. Kittiwakes and shags, scarfies, nesting everywhere on the island are the fulmars with their chicks at different stages of growth. Cute and fluffy on the nest, and fearless, because like their parents they hold a formidable weapon in their armoury. Looming large and in close-up is a great black-back chick, with parent birds circling overhead. The parents nest in the vicinity of mixed seabird colonies, and seabird chicks form an important part of their diet. Like the bonxie, the adult blackback will certainly attack anybody who enters their nesting territory and is a threat to their chick. The ebb tide is in full flow, travelling at around 8 knots, heading past the North Head to meet the last of the flood, and forms what are known as the upwellings. This rock is known as Peary Clit at the North Head, and lying on the sloping rock we find a seal about to settle down for her siesta. We are spotted, and she marks a hasty, slippery retreat back into the sea. The west side of the North Clit is sheltered, and the water is still not too deep, and provides the perfect habitat for the scarfies who nest along the ledges. The whole west side of the island is low-lying, and here on the northwest coast is the elevated stony beach called the Broad Ebb of the Closs. In the distance we can see the cattle grazing just below the croft house near the top of the hill. Today, among the buttercups and the white clover, it's the ragged robin competing for our attention. At this time of the year, the sward on Swona, on which the cattle graze, is a breathtaking sight, extremely colourful with many different grasses and flowers in season. David Allen, the last occupier, left the island chiefly because of his superstitious nature. He'd built his house partially on the site of a graveyard adjoining the chapel. The cattle have gained access to this property seeking shelter, and in doing so have destroyed the old original stove and the bits and pieces of furniture in the living room. The malt kiln is in a very good state of preservation considering its age. In past years its production of malt made for black oats providing a thriving industry for the islanders. Production was continually being interrupted by customs officers who raided the island. Intriguingly, a fulmar has devised a way of using the space behind the ladder to bring up her chick. At the head of the haven, the two-storey house known as Norhead was built by John Nurquay in the early 1900s. He spared no expense in its construction, but this house was too vacated in 1926. This odd-shaped building close by, odd-shaped because its back wall facing the sea's been backfilled by beach debris over the years. It was the Rosies battery hen house, which generated a good income over the years. These old roofless cottages were known as Ayr and Middle Ayr. Jemima Cromarty, who occupied Middle Ayr, left in 1925. This building, set above the race shoreline, is Jemima Cromarty's barn. An old washed-up tree trunk guards the entrance, but today our attention is focused on a wooden box blocking the doorway. The markings on the box appeared to indicate something military, so we were tempted to look inside, and to our astonishment it was a metal detector, which presumably had been left on the island when the military presence left Swona at the close of World War II. We should have removed it and gone in search of pirate gow's buried treasure. These scenes give a general view of the houses which formed the little community at the head of the haven, which in times past was the centre of activity for most of the island's residents. At this time of the year, the predominant colour of the sward covering Swona is yellow, buttercups mostly. This patch of red clover sits atop an archaeological feature near the cliff edge, in all probability a burial chamber. At the rear of Rose Cottage we took a look at the collapsed roof of the workshop. The roof timbers could no longer support the weight of the heavy flagstones. Treading carefully inside, we come across bits and pieces and the rust and tools still held in place, pinned to the wall. This is the view for behind Rose Cottage looking north to the little group of houses. The beach in front of the roofless cottages is called the Red, and this is where the cattle graze the seaweed in the winter months to supplement their diet of withered grass, and it also helps them to survive during the winter months. The camera tacks in the agricultural buildings, the wooden annex and the two-storey house of Rose Cottage. A broken pane of glass in the window of the wooden extension at Rose Cottage has allowed the swallows access, and our untimely arrival has disturbed them. Untying the rope on the door, we've gained entry to the larger end of the two-storey house at Rose Cottage and made our way to the bedrooms on the first floor. Here, lying untouched, are the effects of the previous owners. It's now 26 years since the property was vacated, and the contents of the first floor bedrooms have suffered for dampness, woodworm and pigeon droppings. The style of the furniture and the design of the beds seems to whisper, "I'm not local, I've been salvaged for a shipwreck." The bookcase with its contents on the landing at the head of the stair was at one time the school's library. As the camera pans around the room, we note these boxes and brown paper parcels tied with string to keep the contents dry. And we were always conscious of the number of nautical items in this house. Moving on for Rose Cottage, we make our way up the hill to the croft o' Upthra. Again, this was a house occupied by the Nurkwise until 1927. This building at one time contained two separate families. The roofing slates would have been quarried for the north head, but the nails have given way, and the roof is now in an imminent state of collapse. The interior of the house is yet another sad reminder of the passing of time. In previous centuries, the occupiers of this property, because of its situation, would have had a commanding view of the island and the western approaches to the Pentland Firth. The cattle on Swona very quickly become aware of people on the island and quietly carry on grazing whilst moving away. At the present time, the herd are grazing on their favourite pasture, the former cultivated land between Rose Cottage and Upthra. The cattle are now aware of us, and as we head towards the south end of the island. Moving nearer results in getting some better close-ups of the herd, and it appears that there are more young bulls in the herd than coos and heifers. The number of bulls in the herd has grown, and it will be of interest to see what effects this has on the herd in future years. This bull has been banished to the periphery of the herd. The dominant bull stands out and is certainly unconcerned at the human presence on the island. He is also, by his actions, keeping tight control of the herd. The other bulls will become a threat to his dominance as they mature. This is Klitsgeo in the southeast of Swona, and we come across a relic of the chroma which foundered in this geo in 1899. A creel boat passes by close to the shore, and the crew seem familiar with this area as they effortlessly avoid the rocks and skerries. On a beautiful day with calm sea conditions, these images of Swona's southern coastline paint an idyllic picture, but these rocks and skerries are being continually swept by the strong tides in the Pentland Firth. Over many years, this coastline has sealed the fate of many vessels. Some have come ashore under their own steam, or in dense fog, or been driven onto the rocks by a raging sea. Many of these crews survived the ordeal, but there are stone grave markers or grassy mounds on the shore to mark the passing of those who didn't. This is the stony beach of Skolimar, one of the two sites on the island where the oyster plant is found. The lighthouse, or minor light, is set on the high ground at the Taft. The southernmost tip has a landing spot at Kirkgeo. This was used in the past by the crew of the Pole Star when they came to carry out maintenance on the lighthouse. And today the tail of the Taft stretches out into the Pentland Firth, and in these calm weather conditions it doesn't look ominous. Selkie Skerry is another natural barrier at the southwest tip of Swona. In the past, sailing ships have met their fate here. Presently it's high water, but at low water it's home to a large number of grey seals who haul out to rest. The loch of the Taft is a constant feature on the island. It never dries out in the summer months, and in the winter it expands by reason of it being fed by a natural spring on the high ground near Klitsgeo. With extensive weed cover, it's a haven for wildlife. Close by on the shoreline, the standing stones indicate the site of a Neolithic cairn. It's an interesting place to be in fair weather, as the Arctic terns squabble over whatever's annoyed them, and then a rare chance to see one of their Majesty's warships marking a passage through the Pentland Firth. Viewed from the top of the lighthouse, the tail of the Taft is a formidable saw-toothed promontory, jutting out into the shimmering sea of the Pentland Firth.